God's design for marriage is found in Matthew chapter 19. Jesus said, "At the beginning, the Creator made them male and female. For this reason, a man will leave his mother and father and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh." Welcome to By Design from American Family Radio.
In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Hey, my name is Wesley Wildmon, one of many hosts for By Design. We have a handful of hosts that have come together. You'll hear Mickey and Will. You'll hear Abe and Maria and Bert and Jan throughout the weekends as we move forward. This is a new ministry, a new effort for AFR or AFA, as we try to re-establish and to really highlight the positives and the benefits and the encouragement of marriage the way God designed it. Today we'll be discussing navigating marriage and ministry. That's navigating marriage and ministry here on By Design. You can go to afa.net/By Design to get more of our radio program, to get more of our written content, some of our videos that we have on this effort. But we came together several months ago, almost over a year now, and we decided that we wanted to be the post-Obergefell effort in the same way that there was the pro-life movement after Roe versus Wade. So that's what our goal is. We want to remind people of the scriptures and the way God designed marriage, and that it is not, yes, there's difficulties, there's hard times, but the way that God designed it is beautiful, and it's inspiring, it's encouraging, and there's many, many benefits from it. A couple of the stats that we'll have on our billboards along with this effort that floats around our country is that married families make over an average of 30% more than unmarried parents, and marriages in America the marriages in America are strongest against anti-poverty, anti-crime, health institutes, and the statistics go on of the benefits and the good things that come from marriage. So that's what we're going to discuss in this podcast, in this radio program throughout the coming months. And today, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about navigating marriage and ministry. Along with that, I have a very, very special guest with me. But before I mention that and tell you who it is, hang on. I want you to go to afa.net, or at least remember afa.net/By Design, and you can get more there. So with that said, and with no further ado, I've said special guest before, but this is an extremely special guest. This is my wife. She's on here to be with us, and we're going to talk about navigating marriage and ministry. Chelsea, welcome.
Thank you, Wesley.
That's
excited to be here.
Okay. I knew there had to be more than that. I was really getting worried. She already told me earlier that she was a little bit nervous, and there'll be few words, and you'll do most of the talking. And I thought, if we're going to start off that way, you're right. But no,
This
go
is
ahead.
just not a normal occurrence for me. I'm just not on the radio. But I'm glad to be here and discuss navigating marriage and ministry with you today.
Well, good. I'm glad you're glad to be here, and I'm looking forward to it. And comment and or make some comments in the chat below, or wherever you can, or email us and let us know if you've enjoyed Chelsea being on with us, because I look forward to this being a regular occurrence where Chelsea and I come on. I know that we have some plans in our next radio program to have some of our best friends on that are married Christian couples and talk about it was your idea. What was it?
How to fellowship with other Christian married couples and the importance of it.
Yep, we'll have that on here By Design at our next program, possibly. It's something we're considering. So if you have any ideas or thoughts on what you would like Chelsea and I to talk about on By Design during our segment on By Design on AFR.net, just let us know. So as we get into this, I know we've got, about 20, 22, 23, 24 minutes left. So with what we've got, Chelsea, let's discuss this. Well, you know what? Since we're going to be doing this sometime, let's first introduce ourselves and our family. So tell our audience a little bit about our family.
Awesome. So Wesley and I have been married for 7 years. We got married, in October of 2012, and we've been together ever since. Mm-hmm. And now we have 2 beautiful children, Bennett and Landry, and we are actually adding our 3rd edition this fall. So we're excited about that. So our family's growing, and our ministry opportunities are growing, and we're excited to discuss some of that today.
And when you know, because we dated and got married in under a year.
Yes.
11 months was our timeline. So when you know.
Exactly. Some of my friends thought that was a little quick, but I knew you were the one, and so did God. So that's
and
all
I
that
did too.
matters.
All right. So first question: before we can talk about navigating marriage and ministry, first we need to find what a ministry is. So I have my definition, what I came up with. Do you have one, or do you want me to start with mine?
You just go right ahead.
All right, so let's define it. What I came up with, and I know there's a Webster dictionary out there, a definition of it, and maybe I should have got that. But what I concluded after my years in ministry and the things that I've read in Scripture is a ministry is a person or a group of people that God has given you the opportunity to witness to or disciple. You could probably add some things in there, but you can't take anything away. What do you think? Is that a good starting point? Can we go with that before we move forward, Chelsea?
I think that's a perfect definition, yes.
All right. I'll say that again. A person or group of people that God has given you the opportunity to witness to or disciple. So that's what we're going to define as a ministry today. That is what a ministry is, and that's what we're going to start with. So first question that Chelsea and I are going to discuss is, how do you know if you've been called to ministry? How do you know if you've been called to ministry, Chelsea?
I think that if God lays a burden on your heart for a certain project, cause, outreach opportunity, somewhere to maybe donate to or minister to directly in person or to pray for, etc., I really think that He's going to burden your heart and set that goal on your heart, and you might not be able to kind of let that go as you pray about it and think through about it. So
yes, and that's more of a specific answer, and we're going to get into what are some ministry opportunities. But before I do, just in the more general sense, we're all called to ministry. So that's kind of a trick question. We are all called to ministry. We see this in Matthew chapter 28 when it says, "Therefore go make disciples." So once you become a Christian, once you repent of your sins, you submit your life to the Lord, married or not married, old or young, regardless of your circumstance or situation, when you become a Christian, everything about your life becomes a ministry. However, what you were describing, and it's what we all face as Christians at some point, is what is that specific ministry? We all agree that every day, we have opportunities to minister, but what is that one thing? And so, Chelsea, why don't you go ahead? You were about to say something.
I was going to say in 1 Peter 4:10, it says, "Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms." So I think that really kind of taking the tools that God has given you and moving forward with those in mind is also a good framework of mine to move forward in ministry. I know that you have different gifts than I have. Yours is, you have a huge gift of teaching, and ministering to, the younger generation. And I think that mine is more an administrative and hospitality. So I think that we work well together in ministry.
Yes. I married you on purpose for that because I knew that when I was going to be doing ministry, I could give you all the book work. No, I'm just kidding.
You do this, you do that.
Yeah.
And I get them done.
No, I'm just kidding. God just worked it out that way, and I'm glad He did. We didn't have a whole lot of time to prepare together nonetheless, and you hadn't even seen my notes, but you literally quoted some of the notes that I wrote down here about moving forward. It's important, if you're unsure what that ministry is, to always be moving in a ministry, and then because it's easier to steer a desire or a burn in you into a right direction. It's harder to get it started. So if you're unsure what it is, you don't know, it may be several weeks, several months, maybe a year before God reveals it, but you need to be involved in the ministry somehow. So with that said, Chelsea, give us the list or an overview of some of the ministries that you or I, together or individually, and we'll get to that later on, but just the group of ministries that we've been a part of either while we were married, individually, or together. Go.
These have mostly been while we have been married. I know that before we were married, you started out in a Monday night ministries, and that's locally here in Baldwin, Mississippi. And
a quick description of that, just so because when you say Monday night ministry, that quick description of Monday night ministries, it was another phrase with that was apartment ministries. It was kids that were highly unlikely to come to church in any other setting. And so we did it on a Monday night, and we offered a bus so that they actually had a ride. We provided a meal, and then, of course, a Bible study and some games along the way. So that was that idea. Go ahead.
Yes. And it was a very successful ministry, and I believe still continues today. We're just not a part of that right now. And that's another thing we'll discuss a little bit later.
While we're not,
Is seasons, yes. Another one that we've been involved with was our local church youth group in our home church. We have done nursery rotation. That in itself is a ministry. Sometimes not a lot of parents. They want to use the nursery, of course, to drop their children off so that they can go and enjoy these services. But to serve in that ministry is also a huge need. I know in our church and probably across the nation.
All the churches. We've all heard the stats, and I don't know.
And probably your preacher preaching on your need to be in that ministry.
Yes,
so yes,
you hear people say all the time, and I don't know if this is a hard data, but it's something that people have observed that 80% of the church or 20% of the church. 20% of the church is 80% of the work, and we just know that shouldn't be the case, and we're going to talk about why we need to do better. So here we go.
Yes, and we have served in Awanas, still continue to do that together, and that is another church program that we're involved with. And you're a deacon in our church, and you also coach our little boy Bennett's baseball team, and every year you do Men of Honor. And then something that was put on my heart was sponsoring our Compassion Child that we support every month and enjoy writing letters to and keeping up with and praying with. So a combination of all of those that we've been involved with over the years. Some you have taken on, the reins of that because that's your gift. And then I kind of, support you at our home. And whether you're married or whether you're not, and you have a spouse, you're supporting them in ministry, even if you're not physically there at the event or the meeting or, whatever it may be, by supporting your home and taking care of your children or et cetera. If you don't have children, you're probably running errands or, grocery shopping or cleaning or doing a Bible study while your spouse is away. So I think that even though you may not be physically present, you still are supporting that ministry of your spouse. So, and that goes, I think, both ways for you and for me. Sometimes if I'm not in the nursery, you may be helping with our kids so that I can serve there, or vice versa. I know with coaching a lot, I do come to a lot of Bennett's practices, but sometimes there are things to be done at our home. So, I take care of those, and Landry's usually with me and also supporting us. So even our children support us and they don't even know.
Yep. And I apologize for those that were listening so intensely that you heard me smacking and sipping my coffee. I apologize. That is a delicious cup of AFA coffee that I need to be more mindful of. I know that my granny would have said that was rude, so I'll be careful not to do that. And Chelsea's in the background shaking her head, cut that out. So I'll try to do better. All right, here we go. So with that said, if you notice there, you go from, and I mentioned this earlier, you go from church stuff, nursery, Awanas, youth group, and then boom, you go coaching and Men of Honor. Well, that's because, as I mentioned at the beginning, that our ministry is not always or not necessarily inside the four walls. So there's constant opportunities, and people are extremely creative in the ministries that they come up with, so much so that we have a whole radio program on AFR on Sunday mornings at 9:30 to 10 on AFR, and Sunday afternoons from 1 p.m. to 1:30, and that program is called Exploring Missions on AFR, where they discuss all types of creative ways that people are involved, that Christians are involved in ministries. I've been on there with my trips to short-term mission trips. I've heard coaches on there. I've heard businessmen on there, how they get their staff involved in a Bible study and all types of creative ministries. So be creative in your ministry. And that leads us to, or the point I make there, there's short-term ministries and there's long-term ministries. So with that said, Chelsea, why do you think that Christian marriages should be involved in a ministry?
I think that it not only strengthens your marriage because you're working together on something, it also pleases the Lord. He commands us to do that.
You're taking my points, Chelsea. You didn't even look at my notes.
Oh,
Okay, go
sorry.
ahead. I'm just kidding.
But yes, the Lord commands us to do that, and He tells us to serve others with all of our heart and all of our soul. Joshua 22:5 says, "But be very careful to keep the commandment and the law that Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave you. The love of the Lord your God, to walk in obedience to Him, to keep His commandments, to hold fast to Him, and to serve Him with all of your heart and your soul." So service, God mentions, I don't know how many times in the Bible, but I know service and serving others and loving others is right at the top of one of the most things probably mentioned in the Bible.
Absolutely. It's one of the evidence of a born-again believer is serving others. You're listening to By Design on American Family Radio. Chelsea and I, Chelsea being my wife, Chelsea Wildmon, and my name is Wesley Wildmon. We are hosting By Design, and we're discussing navigating marriage and ministry. We know that's a difficult thing to do, and we've got to be careful. Thus far, we've talked about a handful of things about certain ministries that we've been a part of. We define what a ministry is, and we're about to get into the how much is too much and what does it look like, some of the things we've learned and some of the things we've made a mistake on, some of the things we did right. We're going to get into those things, so stay tuned. Also, go to afa.net. That's afa.net/bydesign, and you can find more articles on the topic of marriage. You can find the way God designed it. You can find out more articles on anything as it relates to marriage, such as parenting, such as how to, again, navigate marriage and ministry, how to serve others in marriage, and you'll find some of the other efforts we're doing, as I mentioned at the beginning of the program, how we are trying our best and want to be. We have the desire to be the post in the same way that there was a lot of these pro-life organizations and ministries that came along and birthed out of the Roe versus Wade tragedy. Well, we want to be the same following Obergefell. That's our goal. We want to be out front, very bold, very courageous, and also very positive and uplifting of God's design, the way God designed marriage. And that's what we want to be. So go visit afa.net/bydesign. Okay, so you mentioned why do you think Christian marriages should be involved in ministry? You mentioned one of the few things I wrote down too. Another thing is I believe it helps others grow in their knowledge of God, and also by serving others, it keeps everything in perspective, and it keeps us from our selfish nature. It keeps our selfish nature in check. All of us can think about a time where we thought that we had, and I don't want to make it trivial. I don't know what the situation is, but we all have been in a really bad situation, or we had a really difficult season in our life. We were really challenged in a lot of ways, and just a real time to mourn. All the while, once we got back into serving and we got back into ministering, we realized that it put everything back into perspective. It doesn't change the circumstances. It doesn't make bad things go away or difficult, hard times go away. But it does. Serving others does have a unique way of bringing about a complete biblical perspective to suffering and difficulties when you're helping and serving others. I've noticed that in my own ministry, and so that's why I believe it's that much more important to be involved in the ministry, because once you're involved in ministry, again, it keeps you grounded. It keeps you from becoming selfish. Would you agree?
I would definitely agree. And one of the things that we didn't necessarily, quote unquote, list was our family. I think that so often, people we forget sometimes that our number one ministry should be our family, should be investing in our marriage and our children and, maybe other children that are close to us in a way that may not have that, traditional, quote unquote, family structure. Maybe, they've lost a parent or a parent has left or et cetera. I think that, serving our children close to us and pouring into our marriage is really the number one next to all of these others that we have served in and continue to serve in, because if our home isn't strong and based in the Lord, then it's very hard to serve others.
Absolutely. And I've said for many, many years, having worked at AFR full-time for 8 years in August, I have said many, many times that after I conclude, we meet once a week on Mondays to discuss what's going on in the culture. We also are in constant study and constant in the news of what's going on, in the know of what's going on in entertainment, culture, government, and all that I've seen over my full-time 8 years and even beyond that. I've concluded that the number one issue and the number one problem in America is resting on the brokenness of the family. There's so many correlations. I mentioned some of the stats earlier. There's so many correlations between the problems we have and the brokenness of the family. One of the things I didn't mention, some of the billboards we have out there by design floating around, one of them says it. One of them says this, and it's true. We've studied this. It says children raised by married parents are 2 times less likely to drop out of high school. I mean, the stats are in favor of the way God designed marriage, and we want to support that. So one of the things Chelsea and I talked about too for the program that she just didn't have a strong opinion on, she said, you take this one, so I'm going to do this. And if you change your mind halfway, you hop in here, okay, Chelsea?
All right.
All right. Should you have a ministry separate from your spouse? Should you do all ministries together, or does it matter? What I have found is all the above. I believe if God's given you a passion or desire that he hasn't given your spouse, and your spouse supports you and you believe it's something you're able to do and you're able to fully commit to, then go for it. At the same time, I also believe that doing ministry together also strengthens the marriage. As I mentioned earlier about serving together, it just really changes, really sets things aside that are trivial and raises things that are of importance biblically when you serve together. So serving together is important. If you have a ministry that's different than your spouse's or you have gifts, do that. And I'll just give you an example of Chelsea and I. So I have a real burden for young men without dads. And so I was given a ministry called Men of Honor, and I had that up through the ministry of AFA. They are underneath the umbrella of AFA, so you can go to afa.net/events, and you'll see under there Men of Honors. It's through June and July. We meet once a week, and I minister to young men without dads, and so that's my idea. My ministry that God's given me, and through the help of many people, many men that help come alongside mentors, not just myself, we work together for young men. Well, that's something that not necessarily you.
Right. If I showed up, I think they would
Be out of
probably
place.
look at me a little funny. What are you doing here? You're not a man.
Hey, you know what? I may have you, though, this year for the etiquette time.
That is true.
We do learn about etiquette, and you may be there for that.
Yeah. And the way that you have that program set up, I think, is so wonderful. It's a summer program. That way, they don't have distractions of school, maybe sports going on at that time, to really pour into and listen to a biblical topic, a practical application, and then usually an activity that deals with that. So that's kind of how you've set that up. And I think that could be a whole nother topic later on that we can dive into a little bit more. But you've really set that up great. And I would love to, if anyone has any suggestions or questions about how you could do that in your local area, please send us an email, faq@afa.net, and we can get them some resources for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that said, we want to be able, like Chelsea said, we want to be a help of any way that we can. And so let's move on with a couple minutes we got left. And what is some of the thoughts that you have with our current situation based on the ministries we're involved in now with the kids? And let me just say this before you answer that what I've learned over the years is that you don't think of a ministry as a location that you go to, and then if you're not in Africa, and that going to Africa and doing ministry is a good thing, but sometimes it's easy to think of certain things as being a ministry, and if you're not doing that full time, then you're not ministry. But God gives us opportunities in the season. Like Chelsea mentioned earlier, we have a family of 2 young kids, and so there's certain ministries that we were involved in, pre-marriage or even pre-kids, and realized that those are things we couldn't do now necessarily. So just be creative. Don't have such a minimum view of ministry. Have an open view of ministry, because this example of Men of Honor is only eight days in the summer, really. It's 8 weeks, it's once a week, and I've got men that are involved in this that couldn't serve in other ministries because of the same schedule we have. So with that said, having a better understanding of a picture of ministry, what would you say about our ministry that we have today, things that we're involved in?
I think that the things that we're involved in right now are great, and they fit our family and they fit our schedule, and sometimes we are called to go outside of our comfort zone, outside of our schedule a little bit more. Right now, what we have, I think, is a great setup, and I don't think that I would necessarily add any more commitments on it this time. And like you said, it's not a place or a location or a time. It doesn't have to be. I know that with our children, even such a thing as, sponsoring our Compassion Child, we have taught them, hey, we can't wait to get our letters from Radit. That's her name. We can't wait to get our letter from Radit this month. And, we can't wait to see how we can pray for her. And it also teaches them not everyone has the same lifestyle. Not everybody lives in the same location.
Yep.
Everybody around the world is different. We can teach them through even a small way that serving others, we're serving her. We're able to help support her, be able to go to school, get the medical care she needs, and learn the love of Jesus. And I think that even those small opportunities that you can take with your spouse, with your children if you have them, etc., are important. Now, I don't necessarily think at this time that we would take on anything else right now, just because we are about to add a new precious little blessing in the fall, and that will take up some of our time.
So, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah, adjusting to becoming a family of 5. So I think that right now what we have is great, and I can't wait to continue to pour into those ministries, into the children, and into the lives that we are now, and just showing them the love of Christ. I know that something that stuck out to me, a verse, was 1 Samuel 12:24. But be sure to fear the Lord and serve him faithfully with all your heart, considering what great things he has done for you. So I think that taking that mindset of the Lord has done this for me, I want to share that with others, is important in ministry.
Yes. Well, we got about a minute so left. What are to our audiences listening here, what is some of the advice that we could give?
I think don't overcommit, pray for what you're involved in, involve your children if you have them, and really give every opportunity to the Lord to serve.
I would say, in addition to not overcommitting, once you do commit, stay committed, and your spouse needs to be the one. Y'all interchange holding each other accountable when the days get weary, because there's a start and a finish, and you've committed to something. You need to do it. Hold each other accountable. Also, last but not least, involve your kids, involve your family in ministry. That's an advice I would give that we've learned over the years. And so we want to encourage you to involve your children. So as we've discussed navigating marriage and ministries, if there are other things you want to hear us discuss, let us know. We're so grateful that you tuned in to By Design on AFR. And we are looking forward to our next program. We'll have some special guests on. And I'm so grateful for all the other hosts that are doing this effort with us. And again, thank you so much. And we will see you next time.
Thanks.